He had to give me a few cough drops. I don't know where they're at in here. See if you can grab me a couple. They got to be around here somewhere.
This is a Huddle Sports Network broadcast. You can find us on Roku TV, Amazon Fire Stick TV, Facebook, and YouTube. Get all your sports news here first. The daily podcasts are Ken and Ken in the Morning, Lions Talk with Smoking Jeremy B, Wrestling Roundup, The Big Football Show, and more, Shield TV, Lions Villain Report, and Red Zone Rant. The afternoon podcasts are Valhalla, Grosef Sports, WCFL Dolphins Talk, The Cheap Seats, The Bodkin Show, Spirit of Detroit Podcast, and MMENs. The nightly podcasts are Hallis Hall Report, Frozen Tundra Network, Skull Gang 365, The Huddle Sports Network Open Mic, First and 10 with Foz, Main Event Football Show, Prime Sports World, The Man Cave, Prim and Proper Sports. Spitballing Podcast, Lions Fan Cave Chat, Puckett, 313 Den Podcast, The Guys Huddle, Shots from the Sideline, Let's Talk Sports, The Michigan Truth Sports Podcast, Off the Rails, NFC Northeast, Power Hours, and Detroit Lions News. Make sure you follow, like, share, subscribe, and comment. Hope you like all the shows.
All right, we're here for a great morning here on Saturday morning. Hope you have your raisin bran and your pancakes or whatever you're having this morning, and get fired up with your coffee as well for the External Bomb Show. I'm Ralph Williams, and my co-hosts are Scott Morganroth, Jeremy Ballrich, and Leo Haggerty. It's great to have you guys with us today and everyone watching in. And guess what? We now have not only just the kneecap fighting Detroit Lions YouTube and Facebook page, but we also now have the South Florida Tribune Facebook page and YouTube channel, as well as the Huddle Sports Network on Roku. And also we're on my YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch platforms. We are out there. The External Bum has expanded, and it's great to know that as well. All right, let's go around and get started with our bum segment here, which is brought to you in part by the Scott Morganroth book, The Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. Scott is going to have a second book coming. He's getting ready to start writing that up soon, and that'll be out. But right now he has this one out, and it's at you can get it at Barnes & Noble and also Amazon, and also by his publisher as well. And Scott, I want to congratulate you on your book. It's a great book, Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning and Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders, from a guy here who's been in media for over 40 years. So I want to congratulate him on this as well.
Thank you, Ralph. And by the way, I should also point out, Ralph, that this show is also being streamed on my LinkedIn page, which has over 3,800 followers as well.
Oh, great. Okay.
So we have it on LinkedIn and our YouTube channel. And I'll tell you, for those of you that have never used LinkedIn before, it's done wonders for me in terms of getting guests and so forth.
Yeah, well, I'm having issues, Scott. We'll talk later on. I'm having issues getting on LinkedIn. I have the appropriate.
But it's on mine, Ralph. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. All right. We're in the Mata Heating and Air Conditioning Studios here at 808 Studios in the Allentown section of the city of Pittsburgh. You ought to call Mata 724-2010-500. Furnace acting up. You better get it fixed. Winter is here. Definitely is. UV lighting, keep the thieves away from your house, and also light up your house so you don't slip and fall on ice or anything. Snow melt. They also offer that as well. Mata Heating and Air Conditioning. Give them a call, 724-201-0500. All right, guys, let's get started with our bum segment. We'll start with you, Scott.
Well, I'm going with Larry Fitzgerald Sr. And the reason why I'm doing that is because number one, Randy Moss has a serious health issue. And if he wants to divulge the nature of what it is, let Randy and his family do it. You don't need to do it with Larry Fitzgerald Sr. I've always been a firm believer. One can only tell you that I've had my fair share of medical situations, but if I want my information out there, I'll do it. I don't need somebody else to do it for me. That to me is just not ethical.
All right. Jeremy Ballrich.
My bum is the season ticket holder for the Detroit Lions that doesn't understand that there's a code of conduct when you're a season ticket holder. You cannot be attacking players and coaches of another team verbally or physically or anything else. And the Lions back that statement up by saying the exact same word and banning him for life from Ford Field.
All right. Leo Haggerty, your bum.
Guys, I'm going to have to go with Greg Stanky, the commissioner of the SEC. Watching College Game Day, he is out there begging for 6 SEC teams to be in the college football playoffs, saying strength of schedule, we're the best and everything. And I was so happy that ACC Commissioner Jim Phillips came on right after him and said, hey, look, if you leave SMU out for Alabama, let's call it what it is. Not a college football playoff, but a college football invitational. And I think that one resonated through the committee. And they did the right thing and chose SMU. But Greg Stanky, hey, shut up.
Good morning,
All right,
Christina.
All right. My bum is the NCAA and the transfer portal, the recruiting and firing of coaches. Listen, none of this stuff should be done until all bowl games are satisfied. So what I'm talking about is, let's say, for instance, Pitt's in a bowl game right after Christmas. Pitt can't do any recruiting. They can't do any movement in the transfer portal, can't do anything until their bowl game is satisfied. Okay? They need to start doing this in the NCAA because it's not right that these teams go to bowl games shorthanded without the appropriate athletes that they need to win these games. And it makes it more competitive when you're doing it that way. And then you also have interim coaches, all right? You can't make any moves on head coaches until if it's right before the bowl game and you fired a coach, okay, then you're going into the bowl game with an interim coach and you don't have a chance to win the bowl game. It's not competitive. The NCAA doesn't even care. And that's the sad part about this. That's why they're my bums today.
Well, let me say one thing, though, Ralph. Teams go into games with interim head coaches all the time. So I wouldn't really – I quit while you're ahead, okay? I totally understand where you're coming from with the transfer portal. You're 100% on point there. But when coaches leave prematurely, then you have interims. That's a different situation altogether, Ralph. How many times have you had an interim guy lead a team into a bowl game? But your point about the transfer portal after the bowl game, you won't even get an argument with me, even if I wanted to argue with you deliberately, because I know wackos many years ago growing up as a kid that like to argue just to argue. But I'm not dumb enough to do that. Seriously? Really? I wouldn't do that. But hold off on the interim coaches, Ralph.
I want
The interim coaches, hold on. Sometimes the interim coaches will happen is they'll end up earning the job because of what they did in the bowl game, too.
Okay, Leo.
I got to relay this story to you to back up Ralph's statement. Montana is going to play South Dakota State in the FCS, FSB, whatever it is, their tournament. Their quarterback secretly goes in the portal that Monday, practices with the team, goes and makes the flight, and then they find out he's in the portal and he can't play. Ralph, I agree with you wholeheartedly. They got to shut the portal down till everybody's done, because I'll tell you what, it's going to be interesting to see who's opting out of these games. And there's going to be some guys opt out of these playoffs too.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a bad situation. So go ahead.
You're devaluing the bowl games in the first place by doing what you just talked about. Sorry, go ahead, Jeremy.
The one thing I want to add is a lot of these players entering the portal have NIL deals through the school they're with. And I feel if you're willing to back out and not finish your commitment, you should have to refund the part of your NIL deal.
Good point.
Jeremy, I'm going to jump in on that because they are looking at this as they have fulfilled it because the contract doesn't call for bowl games. Watch what the NIL does in the future. They're going to say the season in its entirety.
Right.
There's the loophole. That's why these kids are getting out of it.
But at the same time, they have 2 transfer portals in the postseason. After the bowl games are done, there should not be one before.
Correct. Absolutely correct.
Well, nobody said there isn't going to be any modifying of this whole thing. There's no question about it. As you continue to see more and more things, you're going to have to continue to tweak it. And this is one of the things that you're alluding to in the first place. It should be after the bowl games. It's bad enough you got 9 million bowl games anyways. 50% of them aren't relevant in the first place. But the fact of the matter is when you look at it, is now you're finding more ways to make them irrelevant to begin with because they're getting out before they play in the bowl game.
Well, also, too, some of these athletes, some of the guys who, might not get a lot of playing time that are maybe, and someone's hurt and might get some time in a bowl game, that they can shine for the NFL scouts better in that bowl game and also with the Senior Bowl and everything else and really shine. You know what I mean? Build their stock up a little bit more as well. So, I mean, I would use that as a tool to build up my stock if I was a college athlete.
Yeah, but by the same token, that there's a double-edged sword there. The last thing you want is a player to get hurt in a bowl game. And I'll give you a case in point. Many years ago, Willis McGahee of the Miami Hurricanes tore his knees up and probably wishes he didn't play in that bowl game. So I have no problem with a guy who's not playing in a bowl game to pursue an NFL career. I'm fine with that. I really, really am. I don't want to take any chances, so forth. So, there's 2 schools of thought there, Ralph. There really are. The portal is one thing. If you don't want to play because you're going to the NFL and you want to train, I'm fine with that.
Right. Yeah, but it's the movement of the transfer portal before the bowl games even happen.
Well, that's another conversation. You already mentioned that earlier, and I'll tell you, all of us probably agree with you anyways on it. I agree. It does need to be tweaked and altered, but these are things that these people are going to have to find, okay, we need to fix this. So, how many times have you ever gone to NASCAR where they have to go ahead and change rules in the middle of the year? Then again, they always change rules in the middle of the year anyway, to begin with. The same thing here. There's going to be some things that have to tweak. And even after last year's college football playoff, I'm going to be writing a story for the South Florida Tribune that while the Miami Hurricanes didn't help themselves out at all by losing 2 of the last 3 games, everybody's got to learn that you can't lose your last 2 or 3 games, otherwise you're going to be left out of it. So there's going to be some tweaking with how you end up, because here's the thing. You have a guy who has a chance to win the Heisman Trophy winner and not even in the college football playoff. That's what you have in Cam Ward.
Right. All right. I want to thank Christina Payne for her comments. Good morning to you as well, Christina. Thank you for being part of the show. And also, we're now simulcasted on the South Florida Tribune and also on LinkedIn through the South Florida Tribune and Scott Morganroth. And I want to thank you for that as well. Also, Jeremy Ballrich's site as well. And we're also on the Huddle Sports Network on Roku. So we're moving along here with the External Bum Show every Saturday morning here at 9 o'clock a.m. Good morning from the South Florida Tribune. Thank you. Good morning as well. And all right, let's get on to our next topic, which is brought to you in part by, and we're going to talk about the new college coaches that have been hired. And this one's brought to you by the original Hometown Pizza, Moon Township, University Boulevard. Hey, if you're on your way to the airport, you don't want to pay the expensive prices at the airport concessions, you could stop at the original Hometown Pizza, get yourself a pizza for a really good price. Hey, if you tell them Ralph Williams sent you, you get a discount on your order. So 412-264-5444, eat-in, takeout or delivery if you live in the Moon Township area, the original Hometown Pizza. All right, let's get started here. We're going to talk. I'm sorry, Jeremy.
I said, oh, darn, they don't deliver to Michigan.
No, I know. That's like, what is it? Josh always says he called Alex his flowers. Yeah. You know what I mean? So, okay, guys, we have some new college coaches, some surprising names that have surfaced that are now college coaches. Dan Mullins is taking over UNLV. Great for him. He was a good coach in Florida, great analyst on college football. And Richie Rod is back at West Virginia. And now the biggest one of them all is Bill Belichick taking the job at North Carolina. Let's start with you, Jeremy. Let's talk about this as we go around the horn here.
Great for Dan Mullen. Rich Rod, he kind of got railroaded out of Michigan. He didn't even get his full 3 years to be able to build his team to see what it would be in a fourth year. But he always was a decent coach. Look at what he did at Arizona State after he left Michigan. Look at what he did at, was it West Virginia or was it Virginia? Wasn't he at West Virginia before?
He was at West Virginia, yeah.
And actually, you know what, Jeremy? I believe he was with Arizona, if I remember.
He was with Arizona.
Arizona,
yes.
Okay. I thought it was Arizona State. That's okay.
Well, you're only looking at my shirt.
Yeah. But anyways, he did a good job everywhere he'd been. And the problem is his style didn't fit the Big Ten style of play.
Right.
So it didn't work, and he never got his fourth year. And what's funny is, Brady Hoke comes in with the Rich Rod recruited players and wins his first season with a different style of football. That's, that tells you everything, is that his style of offense didn't fit, but he also didn't have a great defense. So you can't have an offense that doesn't fit and not a great defense. So I think he's going to be fine right back where he started, because that air raid spread defense, the spread offense that he does really well in that conference, and he might bring it back to prominence again. Bill Belichick going to North Carolina, I don't know if it's as much to do with his son being able to take over as coach a few years down the road, or if it has more to do that his girlfriend might be the captain of the cheerleading squad and he can keep an eye on her.
Everybody's talking about that. We talked about that on the we're going to be talking about that this afternoon on the Sports Corner radio show about this. And my co-host, one of my co-hosts, Smoking Jim Frazier, brought that up. He said, we need to talk about his girlfriend.
Well, she is 24. That is like the last year of eligibility if you're a cheerleader on a scholarship.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Leo Haggerty, your thoughts on these three coaching hires?
You expect me to follow that? Come on, that's crazy. Jeremy, hey, the kick was good. Absolutely. I'm going to throw another one out there, guys. I don't know if you heard, but Scott Frost is going back to Central Florida.
Yes, I did hear that one. I forgot about Scott Frost. Yeah.
That's going to be a huge hire, because he was the one that brought them from the doldrums. I think he went 0-12 his first year there, or very good, and then turned it into what they call a national championship, because and then he moved on to Nebraska and wasn't successful there. But I think when you look at the hirings, the one I'm going to really look at is Rich Rodriguez, because the Big 12 is always open every year. I mean, look at Arizona State. They're picked to be the last in the conference, and they win it. That conference is so open because of the travel these guys got to go through. I mean, think about this. Central Florida's got to go to Arizona. Arizona's got to go to West Virginia. I mean, it's crazy. But I like the hiring there. I like the hiring of all these guys coming in, because they're going to come in with clean slates. And look what Bill Belichick did right away. He hired a general manager, Mike Lombardi. A great hire to bring him, Mike Lombardi, I'm sorry, to bring him in to basically say, you handle the portal. That's my job.
All right. Brent says, good morning. Thank you, Brent, for being part of the program. Also, it says, I'm shaking my head, LOL. So there you go with Brent. All right.
You should know, if there's a joke to be made and it's out of a headline, I'm going to find it.
There you go. All right. Scott Morganroth, Motor City Madmouth. Go ahead, Scott.
I'm going to hold off on the Belichick one. I have mixed reviews on that one. Frost, I like at Central Florida. The problem with Rich Rodriguez was at Michigan is he didn't embrace the alumni either. So he was an outsider. That didn't help his cause at all. And I like the Dan Mullins hire out at UNLV. But you want to know a sleeper hire? This guy by the name of Zach Kitley that Florida Atlantic University hired. And you're going to hear this name, okay? But this guy's only 33 years old. He's actually worked with Patrick Mahomes, and Bailey Zappi, Davis Webb, and this guy here is an offensive genius, and his teams have averaged 457.3 yards and 34.8 points per game. Now, if you're trying to make that university relevant and you can't put anybody in there anyways, I've seen high school teams draw more than they do. This guy might be able to do it. He's 33 years old, a great young offensive line. I didn't get out there for him because I've been so busy with a lot of other projects that I can't get to everything. But Zach Kitley from Florida Atlantic University, if he has any success at all within 2 or 3 years, this guy will get hired somewhere else. Because face it, FAU couldn't keep Dusty May when it was over $1 million. What makes you think you're going to keep this guy? No, think about it. Bailey Zappi, Davis Webb, and Patrick Mahomes, and those numbers, that's a sleeper hire. And there's another one at FIU named Willie Simmons as well, who could be an interesting hire down there as well. I think he went out there and coached at Florida A&M, and I believe he was at Duke. So these are small schools in our area, but I like the Zach Kitley hire. I'm looking forward to getting to know this young guy, albeit I'm always tied up with the Hurricanes. Every now and then I get up to Boca. But this is an intriguing hire that should not be taken off the radar.
I'll tell you who the whole team transferred out. Marshall University hired a new coach. And what happened was when they hired their new coach, the whole team transferred. So, they're going to have to rebuild that whole, that whole team.
And the same thing is going to happen to Colorado if Dion leaves. I mean, that's a big worry right now that these colleges and universities need to have. If my head coach leaves, am I going to have, 50 guys to suit up? Because they're not there for the university anymore. They're there for the coach.
Yeah, but do you really think, Leo, that Dion's going to leave right away? No. I don't either. I think he likes it there. This guy's a big fish in that particular pond. And if you can walk around with those cowboy boots and that hat out in Colorado, I think he might actually, if he's smart, and I think he really is a shrewd character. Never met him, don't care. Didn't like his comments about when he could have been drafted by Detroit. The Lions couldn't afford him. I guess he didn't know that the Fords were billionaires, but that's for another lifetime ago. But I think that Deion Sanders could really build something good at Colorado. I really do. And the fact is, they're in a Power 4 conference anyway. So it's not like you have to go to one of those conferences. You're already in one, and you already had a very good turnaround from year 1 to year 2. So I'm not so sure I'd worry about Deion leaving Colorado right away. I really don't think so at all.
Well, if Deion would have never said he wants to coach his son in the NFL, then nobody would be worried about it. But those words came out of his mouth. And I'm not saying he will leave right away.
Right.
Because what if he gets drafted to somebody that has a second-year coach instead of a new coach?
Right.
That team may not want to move on to see what that coach does with better person at that particular position. Right. But at the same time, we've all said that it's a mistake usually to start your rookies right off the rip. When, especially with now, even with Cam Ward, there's some questions if they're NFL ready because of how their season ended. And I'm not trying to poo-poo on Cam Ward. I'm not trying to poo-poo on Shedeur Sanders. But there's a reason why Shedeur Sanders dropped to 6th in the Heisman voting and Cam Ward's at 5. There's a reason for it.
Well, you say he's at 5, but isn't he in the Final Four in terms of who got invited there?
Yeah,
he might have got invited, but he's 5th in the voting is what I was getting at.
Okay.
Shedeur Sanders is 6th. The top 2 right now, and it looks like it's not even a question. It's coming down to either Ashton Genty or Travis Hunter.
Okay. Well, that's interesting to know.
All right. Patty Grimes says both Sanders to the Raiders. I call them the Raiders. So,
yeah, I've heard
the reason why is Deion was driving by and he snapped a picture of Shedeur in front of Allegiant Stadium. So
right.
Yeah. You know what? That could happen. You never know. The NFL and college football, they're all unpredictable. It all depends on what's going on. Tony Gibson is the new head coach at Marshall. Tony was once under, we call him here Fraud Graham, not Todd Graham, because of the way he exited Pitt to go to Arizona State. And, we call him Fraud Graham. He was a good this and did nothing. But anyway, Tony Gibson served under him as a defensive coordinator, and he's been around college football. I think he's going to be a good head coach for Marshall. The last name head coach that they had there was Doc Holliday, and
Right.
Doc did a really good job at Marshall as well. So we'll see what Tony Gibson does. He's been around, and I think he'll do a pretty decent job. Okay, we have the college football playoff coming up. Some of the games we're going to talk about right now, and that's brought to you today in part by RW Media Productions. Sponsorship advertising. Call today, 412-545-4317. You get this podcast, 5 other podcasts, 2 radio shows, and a button advertisement on my website, www.rwmediaproductions.com. Check it out. Archive shows are on there of all of the shows that I do on my YouTube channel. And please subscribe. I need 12 more to make 200 by the end of the year. So please subscribe. I'm up to 188. I need 12 more subscribers. Also check out all my archive versions of my shows on my YouTube channel, Ralph Williams, RW Media. All right. Let's talk about the college playoff schedule that started right now. First game we're going to talk about is the game that I'm interested in pretty much is Penn State versus SMU. Scott, we'll start with you.
You know what? I'm going with SMU in this one. I really am. I think that Penn State, to me, is overrated. James Franklin has never been able to win at the biggest times, and he's going to fall short in this one, too. SMU is a pretty good team. Keep in mind that this team here, they have, 200, that their boosters will contribute, I think, $200 million just to get them in there for the much better conference. And they paid them back handsomely by making the step and being very competitive. So I'm riding with the ponies. I really am. I just don't like Penn State and really think that they were fortunate to get in this thing. So go ponies.
Yeah, absolutely, Scott. I agree with you 100%. James Franklin hasn't been able to win the big games, and I'm surprised that he's lasted as long as he has at Penn State. But, and he has 2 great recruiters that recruit around Western Pennsylvania, and that's Terry Smith and Bob Pelko, 2 former high school coaches in Western Pennsylvania who had 2 good high school programs here as part of his recruiting staff. So he does a really good job of that. It's just his coaching in big games, terrible. And I agree with you on that. I think SMU is going to give them a game, and I think they could beat them.
SMU nearly came back and won last week. I mean, they had a rough start, but they made it really interesting at the end, and that's why they got in. Obviously, I wish Miami was there, but if Miami's not there, so be it. I'm applying for their bowl game in Orlando, but that'll be for another day. Nevertheless, though, I've never been a big supporter of James Franklin. I really never have.
I'm not
sure. And you being a Pittsburgh guy, I can't imagine you're really riding his bandwagon either.
Well, I've never been a Penn State fan, but let me say this. When the bowl season came up, I was never a Paterno fan. I didn't like because, Pitt and Penn State always played each other for a long time. And then what had happened was when Penn State would go to bowl games, I would root for them in the bowl game, but I wouldn't root for them in the regular season, okay? Then when Joe Paterno got fired because of that nonsense with Sandusky, I felt bad for Joe Paterno. I respected the guy. He was a really good coach, won some national championships, and almost went to the NFL. Yeah, I mean, he was up for a couple jobs, and he stuck with Penn State. They stuck with him. I think that's what they're doing with James Franklin. But Franklin got to start winning some big games. But this alum's going to get a little, feisty up there.
Well, let me add to this too. I was hoping Bill O'Brien would make it. I saw Bill O'Brien take out Wisconsin over at Camp Randall, and Bill O'Brien was there at the wrong time. He had to clean up that mess, only to turn it over.
Right.
But Bill O'Brien would have been an ideal coach long term because he had a good knowledge of the pro system, is what he did, and it would have been a nice conversion. He was ahead of his time, but Bill O'Brien, I thought, was a good fit.
I thought he did a good job with what he had to work with, Scott, when they were in suspension and all that stuff.
Exactly.
And they got lucky and got out of it early. I mean, so.
Yeah, he had a tough job there, Ralph. That's for sure. Bill O'Brien with that mess he inherited.
Oh, yeah. Leo, your thoughts, Penn State, SMU.
You know what, guys? If this game's playing in September, I'm taking SMU, but here's the problem. Here's what's going to happen in this game. It's going to be SMU 28, Penn State 24, Mother Nature 10. SMU is going to go up and freeze at Happy Valley. They are not, these kids aren't used to this. This is what's going to be really interesting. Seeing Tennessee go to Ohio State, seeing SMU go to Penn State. I'll tell you what, if the weather is good, SMU, but it's not going to be good in another week. I got to take Penn State, and I'm really taking Mother Nature.
All right, Jeremy Ballrich.
I agree about James Franklin. He is mid as a coach. He has lost every big playoff implication game he's had, even in the Big Ten championship. He could have been the Big Ten champ, and what happened? His offense didn't look good. Why? He can't coach. He can't coach in the Big Ten. I mean, Oregon's there their first year and made them look like they were whiny. So, and Drew Allard's kind of mid too. He has, everybody talks about how good he is trying to hype up his draft stock. He hasn't beat Michigan. He hasn't beat Ohio State. How is this guy any good?
Oh, absolutely. All right. Let's get into the next game. Indiana at Notre Dame. All right. So I'm rooting for Curt Cignetti. I'm not a Notre Dame fan. I never have been, but I'm hoping Indiana can pull this off. It's going to be a dogfight, and I hope Indiana doesn't get slaughtered in this game or whatever. I don't think they will, but I hope they win this game. I'm going for Indiana. We'll start with you, Jeremy.
I am in the same boat because if you look at the resume, even though against bad teams, Notre Dame has done well, but have they shut out anybody this year? No, that defense is suspect. Indiana, at least, the last week of the season, put up 66 and didn't allow a single point by Perdone. And so Notre Dame goes down.
Notre Dame, I like that. All right, Leo.
My big question is, why is this game not in Bloomington? Why is Indiana ranked below Notre Dame? Let's look at the resume. Okay, both of them 11-1. Notre Dame, a home loss to who? Northern Illinois. Indiana loses at the Horseshoe to Ohio State.
Right.
This game should be at Indiana. That's, again, another faux pas by the committee of just looking at brand and not looking at the season. I would really hope my brother's son went to Indiana. I hope Indiana wins this because I'll tell you what, Notre Dame, my thought is you're not in the conference. How are you in? You know, let's tell Notre Dame, you got to get in a conference. Plain and simple.
Yeah, we'll see another thing too, Leo. Marcus Freeman and Notre Dame, they have a bad habit of losing to people like Northern Illinois. That's the biggest problem there. You know what I mean? If he could win the games you're sort of supposed to win, that would be, I would agree with them being where they are. But I agree with you on this. Indiana has done really well this season under Curt Cignetti, and he just got a new contract. So, I like what I see there, and I hope they beat him. Scott Morgan.
I'm going to throw this to you on this note. Miami should be in there where Notre Dame is. I mean, Miami lost 2 games, but they lost to Georgia Tech and they lost to Syracuse, both on the road. Notre Dame lost a home game in front of touchdown Jesus.
All right, this is the first time since 1991 that Indiana and Notre Dame have faced each other. 1991. That they have faced each other. So that's one fact. Number 2, I'm going Indiana all the way. I there's no question about it. Curt Cignetti is the coach of the year. And you know why he took that long-term contract? Because he's like any good coach. I'm looking to get a statue outside of Indiana because I'll do something that nobody's ever done here before and win at a basketball school. Is what he's done. And why this Indiana and Notre Dame haven't played more often to me is anybody's guess. But I'm going to tell you, I think Indiana's going to smack them around. I really do. And I think Marcus Freeman could be headed to the NFL. I wouldn't be surprised at some point. And Brian Kelly wishes he were still at Notre Dame because he'd get smacked around in the SEC.
He's terrible at LSU. Yeah.
Yeah. But again, my point is I like what Indiana's doing. Yeah, sure, he got a long-term contract. I actually did a show like this on Inside the Pigskin talking about the Indiana. And to lose to Ohio State Well, everybody expected that. But you know what? They may have lost to Ohio State, okay, but look at all the attention that the Indiana football program has managed to get because of their success. Can you imagine if there's any sustained success? If you think Bloomington was big when it came to basketball, the hard court, wait till you see what a football hotbed it'll be if he continues to develop at the progression that he's done. Remember, this guy also put James Madison on the map, and they're doing pretty well. So he left a great program for the guy that followed him, and now he's working the same magic here in Bloomington.
Yeah, he didn't leave the cover bare at James Madison. That's for sure. I mean, you know. So, all right, next, Clemson and Texas. All right, we'll start with you, Leo.
You know what? I had a big disagreement with Harry the Greek the other night. He's saying that Texas and give the points is the best move. I said, Harry, you got to understand one thing. Texas has never been to a playoff game. They may have 2 or 3 of the Georgia kids that transferred in. They're the only ones that know what's going to happen. Clemson has lived in the playoff game. That's where they make their money. That's where they actually do. Will Clemson win the game? Maybe. Are they going to get beat by 14 points? No, not going to happen because Clemson's been. And hey, here's another thing, guys. Guess where Clemson's quarterback went to high school? Austin, Texas. So you're going to see one of 2 things. Either he's going to have the game of his life or he's going to be so hyped up that he doesn't. I think he's going to have his game of his life. I think it's a close one. I think it's a pick 'em, flip a coin. That may be the overtime game.
All right, Scott Morganroth.
You know what? I'm going to go with Texas by just 3 points. I think that Clemson's fortunate that they were able to get in there because Miami, unfortunately, didn't get in. Yeah, they laid an egg. I hate to talk that way about my Canes, but they did. The reality is that we would have won in Syracuse. Clemson, we wouldn't be talking about it in the first place. I do like Dabo Swinney's philosophy that he wants to develop a lot of his own, and he doesn't adhere to a lot of it. At some point, everybody's going to have to adhere to it. So I respect him in that sense. But I like Texas by just a narrow margin of 3. I really do. This one's like Leo said it. I think it'll be a pick 'em too. But I'm going to ride with Texas anyways, regardless of who's quarterback, whether it's yours or Arch Manning.
All right, Jeremy Ballroom.
I can't take Clemson in this game. Texas has been dog walking over every team outside the SSC. I'm going to smack them in the mouth.
All right. Next, we're going to we have Tennessee and Texas. That's going to be Tennessee and Ohio State. That's going to be an interesting game. We'll start with you, Jeremy.
Tennessee going to Ohio State. That's going to be a rough for them. They're mildly cold compared to what Ohio State's facing. We got a polar vortex over this whole Midwestern area. If it's lasting through to that time, you're talking sub-zero wind chill. You'll have the Tennessee Volunteer Sickles versus the Ohio State University.
All right. Scott Morganroth.
You know, I got to go Ohio State. I mean, Ryan Day's taking so much heat that if he's looking to get out of that heat, it wouldn't be a bad idea to beat Tennessee, let alone a border state right in your neck of the woods. So the horseshoe, albeit Michigan won up there, and I'm happy for the Wolverines. Like you wouldn't believe that they beat Ohio State again. Who wouldn't be from our neck of the woods? But you know what? Ryan Day wants to save face with at least a win in this particular round. What happens later on, we'll talk about it in about a week or so. But I have to go with Ohio State. I think Ohio State can win by at least 7.
All right, Leo.
Okay, guys, I'm going to let you know a little secret. And Ralph, you know Troy Odegaard. He does our AFC South. Yeah. He talked to me last night and he said, I don't know if you've seen this, but Brian Day is pleading with his fan base not to sell their tickets to Tennessee. This may be a Tennessee home game. Check out all the orange that's in the horseshoe next week. These people are selling their tickets by the thousands to get in there. Guys, I picked Ohio State to win the national championship. I'm going to ride that horse till it dies.
Well, one thing that both fan bases have in common is they have stadiums of over 100,000 in both venues.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely they do. Big stadiums.
I think it's close. Is it over 100,000 now? Ohio
No,
State?
no, I think Neyland Stadium has over 100,000.
Oh,
And we
yeah.
know that.
Stadium is 110 now. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And I know Ohio State's got to be just about over too.
I thought it
I
was
wouldn't bet
87.
it's what?
I thought it was 87 for the horse because they got that open end.
Well, then if they had the open end, who's to say how many people are standing that would push it over 100,000?
Right.
Come on, we can't ever exclude standing room only, right, Jeremy?
All right. Each of us here in whatever area we live in, we're going to talk about the college team and the bowl game they're in and how you think they're going to do. All right. So this segment is brought to you in part by Robin Campbell Insurance, Farmers with Bristol West Insurance. Robin sells every type of insurance you ever need, including renters. Give them a call today, 412-366-3399. And guess what? You deal with him directly. You don't go through some corporate number. You don't have somebody that don't speak into English. You deal with him directly. And he will call you back, and he will give you a cell phone number. So Farmers Insurance, that's customer service. Robin Campbell, he's been doing it for a long time. I've been a customer of his for a long time as well. So give him a call, 412-366-3399, Robin Campbell Insurance. Start with you, Scott, Miami Hurricanes.
Well, Miami Hurricanes take on Iowa State. Matt Campbell did get a contract extension to stay with Iowa State. More power to him. Miami's not happy that they were excluded from the college football playoff. Cam Ward is unquestionably one of the top quarterbacks. Miami will bounce back against Iowa State, but I think it's going to be a close football game. I really do. We can't afford to let Iowa State hang around. We have a lot of good weapons. Our problem is our defense let us down 2 of the last 3 games. That didn't help, but don't sell Xavier Restrepo short, Damian Richardson, and the rest of the group. This was a good football team. As long as Cam Ward, Mario Cristobal will say, hey, this was an opportunity for you to leave on a winning note. And of course, it's a stepping stone towards your pro careers. I mean, Mario knows all the motivational tricks. I know. I've been working with him for the better part of 3 years now. So I'm confident that the Canes are going to bounce back. I really am. And I think that what I'm going to be writing a story on, just to give you a little hint, is Miami Hurricanes, like everybody, learn from the college football playoff, meaning that you can't take those last 3 games lightly. And I don't think they did. I just think the defense let us down. Just because you're in the college football playoff, if you don't get to that final game, then you don't have a puncher's chance. And that's what we saw, a lot of different dynamics of where some tweaks in this playoff system could occur next year. It's a good learning experience for everybody. But I'm sticking with my Canes, and we're certainly going to apply for it.
All right, Leo, Haggerty, South Florida. South Florida's playing San Jose State in the Hawaii Bowl in Honolulu. Your thoughts?
Before I go on, Jeremy, question. Not Jeremy, Scott.
Yeah.
Is Cam Ward definitely playing in this game?
I heard that he is playing.
Okay, because I'll tell you what, that changes the dynamic if he decides to sit out, right?
Yeah, but you know what? It does change the dynamic. But we have a young quarterback named Emery, I don't know what his name is, who's an excellent young quarterback that you'll probably hear more of. But yes, it does. There's Cam Ward is just simply Cam Ward. He's Superman.
Yeah, he is. And I picked Miami to be the runner-up in the college football playoffs, so I was wrong with once. South Florida is heading to Hawaii to play San Jose State. Game time, Christmas Eve, 8 p.m. Eastern time. So I'll be on that Zoom probably 1 o'clock in the morning, Christmas Day, talking after that game. I think the amazing part of this, guys, is not South Florida, but San Jose State. The head coach of San Jose State, Ken, and I'm not going to butcher his name because I butchered it for 10 years at Navy, has completely done a metamorphosis. At Navy, he was a run first, run second, run third guy. He is past heaven out at San Jose State. Give him credit. He saw the talent he had. He saw what he had to do, and he changed his offensive philosophy. I think it's going to be a great game. I think it's going to come down to the last team with the ball. I'm going to have to pick South Florida because I know them more than San Jose State, but I'm thinking it's going to be a high score. I think it's going to be like 42-39, up in that range.
Hey, Leo, what you should do if you're looking for a guest on one of your shows, you should reach out to the University of Hawaii, let them know you're from the Tampa area, and contact Craig Angelos, who used to be the athletic director here at FAU. He's the reason I believe that USF is out in Hawaii because he has his ties with USF, and that's how they got a 6-6 team there. Just a little tip for you. Craig Angelos.
Thanks, buddy.
You're
All
welcome.
right, Jeremy, Michigan.
Well, yeah, Michigan gets to go to the ReliaQuest Bowl, where they get Alabama's revenge game last year as their consolation for not making the playoffs. Alabama's going to dog walk us. You know, we're still struggling at QB. Our defense is good. Our running game is good. But Alabama's good versus the run on defense. So that tells me more than likely Michigan's getting beat by double digits.
Well, good riddance to Alex Orji. I didn't think it was any good anyways, but they got a lot of good quarterbacks coming up in the pipeline.
Goodbye, Davis Warren. Goodbye, Alex Orji.
Thanks.
Jack Tatum, Tuttle, we already know that he retired from college football because his injuries didn't heal right. Thank God we get rid of all three bums in one season.
Yeah, well, I guess that's a good thing about the portal. The ones that are bad get away anyways, and they go from bad, and who knows where they're going to wind up. So the portal does have some good things, just haven't seen a whole lot lately.
All right, guys. Pitt versus Toledo in this, what's this called here? The Game Above Sports Bowl. We've won this bowl before when it was at Ford Field. All right, Patty says Michigan upset the Tide. All right. And then, oh, wait a minute here. We already did that one. Okay. All right, Patty, thank you for your comment there as well. And thank you for tuning into the show.
Hey,
all right.
Before we go on, throw one thing out. I have been preaching for all year about how bad Thursday night football is. How bad was it last Thursday? My God. Get a gun, put it to my head, and shoot me. That was probably the worst exhibition. I mean, 12-6. I thought I was watching the soccer game.
I didn't realize I nodded off because the Rams were kicking the game-tying field goal to start the game. I woke up, and I felt like I never fell asleep. And the Rams were kicking a field goal, and I looked at the score. I was like, they're at the exact same hash mark on the exact same side of the field, kicking the exact same field goal I fell asleep at. It's 12-6. What happened?
I like that. That's pretty good.
I didn't watch that game anyways. I like the Rams when they beat Buffalo, but I wasn't watching the Thursday night game.
That
was absolutely
the worst scoring Thursday night football game, possibly other than what was that one that ended up 9-6? Wasn't there one that was 9-6 year one?
Tennessee, and I can't remember who it was.
Yeah,
it was 9-6.
The very first year that they were on Amazon, right?
Yeah.
Because that's when everybody said, "Oh, Jeff Bezos is getting out the noose. He's going to hang himself for buying at $78 million per game."
Yeah. Well, Jeremy, come on. The first year, everybody takes a hit, then they figure out what to do the next year. But yeah, you're right. Nobody's doubting that at all.
Goodell hasn't fixed his scheduling for Thursday night football yet. The best game of the year was Green Bay versus Detroit.
Duh. Really? Seriously? We know that. Don't tell that to my wife.
All right, guys. Real quick question here before we move on to NFL real quick here. All right. If Ryan Day was to be fired from Ohio State and would Mike Vrabel get that job? Start with you, Scott.
You know, one would want to think that's the case. I'm not sure about that. I think Mike Vrabel would still like to stay in the NFL. But you know what? The one reason why I can't rule it out is there have been a lot of pro coaches that are actually going out there and returning to college. I mean, the one that I can associate with many years ago, long before everything is gone here, is Howard Schnellberger. And that's when he was with the Miami Hurricanes and left the Colts. You know, Howard Schnellenberger won a national championship at Miami. And when you talk about the pipeline and connections that you have when you're a college coach who used to be in the pros, it's off the chart. So I wouldn't say no. I'm not sure, but I don't think Ryan Day's going to get fired anyways. I think he's going to.
I'm just painting a hypothetical here. If he was to get fired, do you think Mike Vrabel would get that job? That's what I'm asking.
I think he'd be a pretty good candidate. They'll talk to him.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, Leo, your thoughts. If Ryan Day gets fired tomorrow or whatever, or after this playoff loss or after the bowl loss or whatever, I don't know what Ohio State's going to do. If he does get fired, do you think Mike Vrabel would get that job?
My only problem is, have you ever been to a Tennessee Titans practice where Mike Vrabel was there?
No.
He'd have to clean up his act real quick for college, because every other word starts with an F, and it's not.
Okay.
He's brutal. He's
Yeah,
literally brutal with that. I have no problem with it. Football, it's part of the vernacular. But the college game may not appreciate that. But hey, guy's a heck of a coach. He should be coaching somewhere. Is Ohio State the right spot? Maybe. I think if I'm an NFL coach, why would nobody look at him as the Chicago Bears? They need somebody to walk in there and actually put their foot down and say, hey, this is how it's going to be done. I think Mike Vrabel would be out front of Chicago.
You know what, Leo? I second that. I really do. Chicago would be stupid if they wouldn't even hire Vrabel after the debacle that they had with Matt Eberflus.
Yeah, I know. For some reason, Chicago's been bad with coaches. Oh my gosh, Mark Trestman.
I know why.
Go ahead, Jeremy.
Well, anyway, so the Ryan Day thing. He was told by the AD that he has to get to the national championship. So if they lose at any point, he is going to be fired because he has to make up for losing 3 straight to Michigan. So that being said, Vrabel to Ohio State makes a lot of sense. And anybody who's upset about a coach that uses the F-bomb on the sidelines in college, they should go listen to the middle schoolers in today's society. Because they drop the F-bomb so fast, it's like Halloween candy out of an old lady's apartment when she's handing them out. So that being said, here's the problem with the Chicago coaching thing. They don't let their DMs pick the coach. It's been the president of football operations picking the coach every year. Ryan Poles, when they found out they were trading Justin Fields and that the ownership was on board with it, he approached the McCaskies and Warren about firing Eberflus then. They told him no.
Wow.
So with them telling him no, we're not going to fire the coach that you want to get rid of, that tells him he has no power other than draft status.
Right. Hey,
So
my only problem right now with the Ohio State job is if you're coming in, you're looking at, dear God, this guy has won 96% of his games if you throw out Michigan. I know it's like Army-Navy. There's one game you got to win, but I'm not going into that situation at all because I can go 11-1. If it's the wrong one, they're looking to fire me.
Well, you also have to keep in mind that he lost to a 6-5 Michigan team, and not a team that was where they were way better. With a quarterback, to me, that would be lucky to get a job in the United Football League. That's the problem that you have there.
62 yards.
Pardon me?
62 yards in that game. That was the passing number.
I was trying to be nice about it, okay? I'm talking the United Football League. Give them a little love, okay? But no, I agree. They lost to a 6-5 Michigan team that, barely made it to bowl eligibility, and now they're 7-5. So it's one thing to lose to a Michigan team that's, say, they're 10-1, then you tolerate it. But losing 4 games to Michigan, to a mediocre Michigan team in your own stadium, makes it hard to live with. And that's why he's in the jackpot, Jeremy, that you say that he's in, because of that.
With that being said, they already announced that the president of football operations in Chicago, Warren, is doing the head coaching search again.
Oh, jeez.
The same guy that fired Lovie Smith and hired Mark Trestman, fired Mark Trestman and hired Matt Nagy, fired Matt Nagy and hired Everfart.
Everfart. I call him Everfart.
So if I was Ryan Poles, I'm doing one of 2 things. I'm begging to be fired or I walk away in the offseason.
Right.
I like that. Sure. That's a good one. All right,
Well, hey,
guys.
listen, Ralph. Many years ago, Daryl Rogers once said, "What does it take to get fired around here?" With the Detroit Lions. Well, he subsequently did. And how did it work out? Wayne Fonts ended up coaching there, and Wayne Fonts ended up turning out pretty well.
All right, let's go around the horn here. Our local segment. Let's get started. Leo, you're first. Go ahead, local.
Well, we got the Tampa Bay Lightning. They're away again. They're in Seattle. Then they're back home next week. USF basketball and women's and men's basketball, they've been on hiatus this week with finals. The men are out at Utah State. They lost last Saturday to Chicago Loyola 74-72 to an undefeated Ramblers. They're going out to Utah State, and the Aggies are undefeated too. Not only they got to play the Aggies, they got to play the altitude out there at Logan. So that'll be tough. The women, just an easy trip to South Carolina to play the Gamecocks. I'll tell you what, Jose Fernandez, he plays the top schedule. I think his strength of schedule right now is number 3 in the country. You know, he's played Connecticut. He's played Vanderbilt. He's played Louisville. Now he goes to South Carolina. I'll tell you what, it's been a fun situation to watch down here. The Bucks, they're on the West Coast. They have the Chargers. If the game is under 20, the Chargers win. The Bucks have to turn this into an offensive slugfest because that's something Los Angeles can't do. They don't want to get into a ground and pound with a Jim Harbaugh Chargers team. That's what's going on in the Tampa Bay area, guys. And we are looking forward to the ReliaQuest Bowl. Had the signing party, had a chance to talk to Caleb DeBoers, had a chance to talk to Sharon Moore, both of them one-on-one, had a great situation. Jeremy, you'll appreciate this one. I asked Coach Moore, I said, what's it like playing in front of 100,000 people? He said, well, last year against Ohio State, I looked up and I go, boy, this is my reality, 100,000. Then I asked him, I said, when you come in and look at the mirror in the morning, you pinch yourself and say, I'm the coach of Michigan? He goes, I thank God every day for that.
Amen.
All right. Okay, Scott Morganroth.
Well, Florida Panthers showing no sign of a Stanley Cup hangover. Looking at it right now, they are tied for first place in the Eastern Division, Atlantic Division with 38 points. They lost the Vancouver Canucks 4-0 the other night. No big deal. They're still hanging in there. Miami Dolphins take on the Houston Texans without the Mark Man Shazier, who ended up getting 3 games. It doesn't really matter. I still think the Dolphins are going to fall short in the playoffs. They have too much ground to make up with a lot of teams in the AFC. And again, I'm really looking forward to seeing the Miami Hurricanes in a couple of weeks. But the reality is that it won't break my heart if Cam Ward doesn't win the Heisman, because just because you win the Heisman Trophy does not necessarily mean it's the worst thing in the world. Because I can't remember how many Heisman Trophy winners have ever won a Super Bowl to begin with. Not enough to really think the award is worth anything other than the fact you get to vote for that reward every year.
Jeremy Baldwin.
Well, locally, let's talk about the Tigers. They've been saying they need a third baseman. We need to cut Javi Baez, and we know this because the guy is awful. I mean, the only shortstop I think worse than him is pushing up Daisy. But when it comes to the third base thing, Jace Young did a good job in the playoffs for us, but he's young, and that's not his natural position. His natural position is at shortstop or at second base. So Chris Ilitch doesn't want to pull the trigger on a $200 million multi-year deal for Alex Bregman. Open up the paycheck. It's time. Open up that checkbook. Get him here. That's a valid bat, a guy that plays at almost a gold glove level at third base. Jace Young would make the double play easier for the Tigers at shortstop, and Javi Baez can kick rocks.
All right, Jeremy, thank you. And my local is Pittsburgh Pirates just signed Hopkins, the new first baseman. They also signed as their bullpen coach, Miguel Perez is going to be their new bullpen coach. And there's rumors going around now that the Pirates are looking to trade off Mitch Keller and Jarrett Jones. And, they're slowly not going to have any crowds at the games this year unless there's fireworks, bobbleheads, or whatever, or concerts afterwards, because Andrew McCutcheon has left, because I think I've explained to everybody many times about the screw job that Bob Nutting did to Rowdy Tellez and to Michael A. Taylor. So nobody wants to play for the Pirates because of that screw job. So we're going to find out what happens as they go along. And the Pittsburgh Steelers, George Pickens is out again with a hamstring pull. And we also have Elliott, our cornerback, out. And Larry Okunjobi's out with a groin injury as well. But he was able to serve Thanksgiving or some kind of Christmas meals last night somewhere. But he's out with a groin injury as well. The Steelers take on the Eagles. They haven't won there since 1965. They take on a hot Eagles team that is hungry and can play. And we're going to see what they do against Saquon Barkley, our defense. TJ Watt got to step it up a little bit. Everybody's got to step it up, trying to shut down Saquon Barkley. I think Russell Wilson's going to have another big game, spread the ball around a little bit. We'll see what happens. I think it's going to be a dogfight of a game. I hope the Steelers win for the first time since 1965 in the city of what they call brotherly love. All right. Also, the Penguins are on a roller coaster ride again, as they have been every season. They won 9-2 the other night against Montreal, but then they'll lose 2 games and then they'll win 10 and lose 20. So that's the way the Penguins have been. And it's a roller coaster once again for the Pittsburgh Penguins. And Pitt plays their bowl game right after Christmas against the Toledo Rockets. Toledo has a pretty decent football team for the MAC conference. We're going to see what happens in this game. Pitt is starting David Lynch as a quarterback because Nate Yarnell, who was the backup and didn't get the starting job this year, which I thought he should have, instead of Eli Holstein, has decided to transfer. And one of our key running backs, Rodney Hampton, has decided to transfer as well. And we got one of our offensive linemen decided to transfer. And guess where he transferred to? Toledo. So, so there we are there. So that's the story on Pitt. And we're possibly might have to start a third-string quarterback. Pat Narduzzi says he thinks Eli Holstein will be ready for the bowl game. I don't think so. I think Narduzzi's blowing the smoke he always blows. And, that's not the case there. Other than that, that's it for me and my local. All right, closing thoughts, and then we're going to wrap it up. Start with you, Jeremy.
Well, I do have some good news for Pittsburgh fans. Even though you haven't won there since 1965, your quarterback, Russell Wilson, regardless of team he's been on, has never lost a game in Philadelphia.
Oh, okay. That's good to know.
So, with him being your starter, that gives you a leg up because he torched him as a Seahawk and he torched him as a Bronco.
Oh, yeah. All right.
I'm sorry. This game right here that is going on in Detroit might decide your MVP race at the quarterback position. Whoever wins it might be able to run away with it.
All right. Scott Morganroth.
Yeah, actually, my closing thought, subscribe to South Florida Tribune YouTube channel, Ralph, because that's where they're seeing this broadcast, right?
That's it.
More of them. Subscribe to South Florida Tribune YouTube channel, and kudos to Candy Ebling. Does an unbelievable job with the website, www.southfloridatribune.com. And of course, my book. I'm working on the second one probably after the first of the year. So, and one quote that I was watching on the Pat McAfee show, but Pat was asking Mike Tomlin whether J.J. Watt should come out of retirement, so we can only afford one Watt, not two.
There you go.
I love Mike Tomlin's sense of humor. And you know what? To me, if they had let him go last year, he wouldn't have had a problem getting a job. This guy's unbelievable. Appreciate him in Pittsburgh, you show.
Well, I've badmouthed him for a while, but I will give him credit where it's due. I watched the Hard Knocks thing because the Steelers are on it, because the AFC North is on it. And I got to give him credit for the way he conducts practices, the way he conducts film study, the way he conducts himself as a coach. I did not know what he does. I'm not down there every day like the rest of the media. I don't get paid to go down there, so I don't go down there. And, they don't give me no love down there anyway. So, I'm not there all the time, but from what I hear, he runs, really good practice. I like how he interacts with his players. And, I might maybe change my mind about Mike Tomlin as far
Well,
as
you know,
progressing on Hard
Ralph,
Knocks.
really what you should do is apply for the bowl game in Detroit. I'm sure Jeremy and I have connections to get you able to cover that game. And for it, I'm sure they'll be welcome to have anybody they can get there to cover that game the day after Christmas. Think about it, Ralph, and we'll see if we can make it happen. Take you and your other half to go to Detroit. Unless you're scared of Detroit, you don't want to go.
No, I would go if it's
And
free.
think about it, if you went to Ford Field, you'd be going to a venue for which the Steelers won it all against Seattle. So, think about covering a game. The word cover a game, Ralph, it comes on an
If it's
entirely
free,
different meaning.
if it's free for me. So, and no shame in my game. So Leo Haggerty.
Guys, we would be remiss if we didn't make a quick prediction, all of us, on Army Navy.
Yes, I forgot about that. Thank you
Right.
for reminding me.
So
Yes.
I'll start it, and it's got to be quick. I know we're getting there. My dad, who was a World War II submariner, is probably rolling over in his grave because I got to pick Army. The one thing that's going to be strange about this is I think we're going to see some points scored. Normally, it's a very low-scoring game. I'm thinking Army 31-28.
Yeah, Scott, real quick, Army Navy.
I'm going to go Army. I think Army runs the ball down Navy's throats. I had a guy on, a guest earlier in the week, who said the Army running attack is potent. I saw them play a half against FAU, and they look pretty good to me. So I got to stay with Army. And my dad used to be a part of the Army many years ago before I was hatched.
All right, Jeremy.
Go Army. That's all I got to say. Go Army. Navy is a good team, don't get me wrong. And I think they play great defense. But Army's offensive attack with that triple-headed rushing attack they do out of that full house formation, nobody's been able to stop it all year.
Oh, yeah, it's going to be an interesting game, but I'm taking Army myself. I think they're a better football team. I mean, Navy's a good team, but Army's a better football team. All right, guys, let's go around. Promote yourself. We'll start with you, Scott.
Did it before, I'll do it again. www.southfloridatribune.com. Please subscribe to the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel as we do the best we can to go out there and simulcast to this network when the opportunity presents itself. But most of all, my book, obviously, that you sponsor, Ralph, Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. I'm planning to work on the second half at the beginning of 2025. So there you have it. Those are my three babies. So get a copy. I'm going to be doing some other things with the first version in the not so distant future. Lessons from the Microphone, the good Christmas gift. You can get it at Amazon, or you can get it at Barnes & Noble, Amazon, Kindle, Barnes & Noble.
All right.
There you go.
And Jeremy Ballrich, go ahead.
Well, you can find me right here every Saturday talking with Ralph Williams, where I simulcast this to my channel, which is Kneecap Biting with the Motor City Lions, where I go live almost every single day of the week, and sometimes 2 times a day. So you can get lots of content if you want to know about the Lions. My NFL show is on Wednesday night that Ralph is a part of. This week, I will have a special post-game show on Tuesday night with ESPN radio host out of Grand Rapids and podcaster Mike Kimber. So make sure you tune in for that. I also write for the South Florida Tribune under the Motor City Tribune heading, where you can find my articles with my game previews, game reviews, and off-season reviews moves for the Lions in the NFL.
All right, Leo Haggerty.
Guys, go to ampedupsports.com. We're on YouTube. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. We're like a cartoon. We're everywhere. So check us out. We're going to do some major changes after the new year. We're going to revamp our website. And Ralph, you got to tell everybody you're coming on our stuff too.
Yes, I am. I'm coming on the Amped Up Sports website. I spoke with Trace over the course of the week, and my shows will be simulcasted now and will be on the website as well.
All Ralph shows.
Oh, all of them. Yes. Well, all my sports shows, more or less. But, I'm even uploading my radio show on there, too. So I'm moving along. We're on the Huddle Sports Network here and on South Florida Tribune, Knee Biting with Smoking Jeremy B., who I want to thank, who was on my show on Tuesday on the Sports Corner show with me and Smoking Jim Frazier. I want to thank you for being a part of that as well.
There's a
And
lot of fun.
also, you can reach me on YouTube, Ralph Williams, RW Media. Please subscribe. I need 12 more to reach 200. Please subscribe. You can catch me on the new Blue Sky or Sky Blue Network, or with that new social media platform. I'm also on Twitter X. I'm also on on Facebook. I'm also on LinkedIn, and I'm also on Tumblr. So I'm on all the 5 of those social media platforms. So don't forget to check out my stuff as well. And I'll be talking about the Steeler game on Twitter X now. I moved it from Facebook to Twitter X. So whenever the Steeler game's going on, I'll be talking about it. And don't forget my post-game show coming up on Sunday, 30 minutes after the Steeler game, with myself and Smoking Jim Frazier, and perhaps a few other guests as well. All right. For Scott Morganroth, Leo Haggerty, Jeremy Ballrich, I'm Ralph Williams. Thank you, and we'll see you next Saturday. And don't forget this afternoon, 2 to 3 p.m., 12:50 a.m., 92.5 FM, The Answer, the Sports Corner radio show with me, Smoking Jim Frazier, and Luther Dupree. Claudio will not be joining us today, this afternoon, 2 to 3 p.m., 92.5 FM, The Answer, and 12:50 a.m. on the AM dial. The Answer, and with the best sports talk show on the weekends here in fact, all across Western Pennsylvania. Have yourself a great one. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday, and please be safe. Thank you.
Have a good weekend, folks.
Have a good one. Thank you.